the football. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Emery goes for goal and finishes off the PSG victory.
Nuno Mendes est lancé, Nuno Mendes va vite, Nuno Mendes passe devant Quadrado, le tir, oh il est beau celui-là, le but de Nuno Mendes.
Vers Kylian Mbappé, la reprise pied gauche instantanée, le doublé.
Hello and welcome to PSG Review, also known as the show that gets to take a sigh of relief. The season is finally over and all the packets that it left us with can be alphabetized in folders, put in boxes and who knows, burnt down or fed through a shredder. You can take your pick, also known as the show, fresh out of Paris. I was planning on recording something while I was there, even from the park, but in the end I just wanted to enjoy the match as it was without trying to multitask too much, to be present in the thick of it. When you are at park, which unfortunately for me isn't too often, it's like a bit of a sacred ritual really. You just want to be there in that moment and appreciate it all, to take it all in, no matter how poorly the last match went in the end, but it is what it is. No reason to dwell on that because that chapter is now closed, and today we close a few other chapters too. You're listening to PSG Review, and my name is Mikko. Online you can find me at PSG Helsinki from Twitter and Instagram, and many thanks to you if you have already rated the show on Spotify or Apple Podcast. It doesn't really take a lot of time. If you haven't already done that, go and click while you're listening, and I'm happy to see that increasingly many people have done that, so if you feel even more generous with your time, you can write a review on Apple Podcast or some such. But either way, it's very cool to have you with me right now and a lot to talk about, so let's get into it once again. When I was recording the last episode, moments before pressing the red button, I learned the news about Sergio Rico's accident, and the news at the time were somewhat unclear. It was difficult to get a feel of the seriousness of this incident and his state after it, but he has been under intensive care since. On Monday this week, his wife, Alba Silva, gave some positive news. She indicated that the doctors were reducing the sedation little by little, according to her words. She was sort of very cautious with her optimism, but said that they have a great confidence in the professionals of Version del Rocío Hospital in Seville, which is looking after her husband. He certainly is in our thoughts also, and wishing him quick and full recovery as ever. And the world of football has been sending their well-wishing to Rico too. Like I mentioned, I was at the park on Saturday for the Clermont match, and the Ultras were chanting his name while having a few different banners wishing him strength and telling that they are fighting by his side. Before the kick-off, they had a massive shirt-shaped tifo with his name and number 16, and the club was also going all in, not leaving it uncertain how much this has affected the whole team, as undoubtedly it has. I have no doubt about that. On the 16th minute, there was applause for him moments after his namesake Ramos has scored the first goal of the night and the last one for him in our colors. All the players were wearing shirts that instead of their own name in the back had the name of a backup keeper who, by the way, isn't without his PSG merits either. He's not just sort of a backup keeper, which we kind of always think about him as. And not that this really matters to this particular incident, but, good to remember that Rico, of course, played the Champions League semi-final against RB Leipzig and kept a clean sheet in 2020 when PSG got to the continental final in Portugal. After Kylian Mbappé scored his last of the campaign, he celebrated by lifting Rico's shirt up, and all in all, he was ever present at Park the whole night, including the big title celebrations, as he should have been. I thought it was pretty powerful message, and while this isn't about optics, not at all. I mean, that's a kind of side note. I think that the club and the players did very well presencing him throughout the night, and it had its melancholy, of course, but it was also the historical night of the record-breaking 11th title for the club. The post-match fireworks were really potent. A great show purely from the entertainment point of view, and a privilege to be there witnessing it. I saw it last time in 2019, and this was, if anything, bigger and better. Now, I am fully aware that some will say that we tend to go a little overboard with this stuff, and perhaps that's true, but that's the way of the club now. And this was not about just one night, like said, or one title. This was about all of them together, combined sort of DNA of the club kind of stuff. So I have no complaints myself. And to be honest with you, no matter what we do or how or why, there's always going to be many, many people who will think that it's somehow wrong, no matter what we choose. It's a bit like raising a teenager. Some will relate to that more than others. One of the things that I noticed relates to one of the big stories of this season, that is the relationship or lack thereof between PSG fans and Lionel Messi, who has now officially finished his time with us. And before I get much further, let me make you a promise. I will make you a promise. This show will not dwell on Messi questions beyond this, what I'm about to say. I won't be talking about his future because that's got nothing to do with us, PSG. But I will have my last look at what's been going on, what the issues have been, and having been in the mix at the park, it clarified some of the things to me about this troubled dynamic. I was sitting at the Borrelli stand, which essentially is right next to Bologna, and it's a kind of Messi devotee area. Those are the people who are on their pilgrimage to witness their deity in action, and this is something I have been hearing about throughout the season by people who have been in that general area. As I was walking into the stand to our seat, I saw even some people who were wearing Barcelona shirts. They had turned them upside down. I don't know if they had been told to do that or if they had done it voluntarily, but either way, that type of thing was present. And of course, many Argentina shirts there amongst the Messi fans in specific. And when the players were introduced to the stadium, there wasn't really any initial whistling or booing at his name, but it was the out of proportion cheering by the fans of a single player, of these Messi fans, that then as a reaction launched some whistles and such by the rest of the stadium. The story of Messi in Paris should not be looked at as a tragic love story, but it's been kind of malfunctioning love triangle where his disciples play also their part. Actually, I would say that at least as big part as Messi himself, or indeed the PSG supporters. Because it really doesn't sit well with the fans that a big segment of the stadium is there for one person and not for the team. That the cheering comes from this one part of a stadium. PSG's own stadium, our park, and that is there to give this one man his accolades over a whole team of players. They're giving the special treatment to this one player that to them, isn't out of proportion. But at the stadium, when you are there, it really doesn't sit well in that context. It seems a bit much. When PSG signed Messi, of course, it was a huge marketing move, but it only happened because Barcelona hadn't handled their finances. And when he came, PSG supporters, we were very excited. Of course, we were very excited, but you have to also understand that our expectation for him was very high. Not anything higher than, you would expect. It was in line with his status in football in general, and of course his salary that the club was paying him. We don't expect Carlos Soler to play as Messi because they are on a different level. The expectations vary based on who we are talking about. But what came to imbalance the little bit of social cohesion this fan base tends to have was the new fans of a specific player who didn't care about our team, which to us, of course, is above anything in football. Messi fans chanting at the stadium will create a dissonance amongst the general fans. But the point is, we hope for more in terms of football by Messi, but especially in terms of the right mentality. Ultras thanked Sergio Ramos after the last match, not because he had been better than Messi, but because he gave us all he had to give, despite the injuries and all. PSG fans, by and large, don't hate Messi. I'm fairly sure of that. Most of us have the utmost respect for him. Of course we do, but for his own disciples, the issue seemed to be that for us, he was just a human. A legendary player who didn't live up to the expectations in Paris. I mean, elsewhere he has exceeded them even during our time together. I mean, he's won the Ballon d'Or, while in Paris that wasn't mainly because of PSG. Of course, he had hardly played many minutes for us when he won that. It was mainly about Copa America. And of course, he won the World Cup with Argentina. But we never worshipped him like the god he is to some. And the world wanted us to also accept whatever he had to give us. But it doesn't work like that. It's a bit disingenuous to claim that PSG supporters are particularly harsh on their players. I mean, it's not only Rico who got a lot of love from the crowd, but during the night, like I said, the Ultras also had banners saying, Ramos, gracias por todo, thank you for everything. And during the celebrations after the match, there were these small video greetings from the former players who have been part of our previous title-winning campaigns, and almost all of them got a lot of love from the crowd. Nene, Blaise Matuidi, Javier Pastore, Mamadou Sakho, Guillaume Horo, Jeremy Menes, Jean-Marc Pilochet, Pochola Vecchi, Valdo, Luis Fernandez, Rai, Clement Chanton, Philippe Chanol, David Shinola, and even David Beckham. The stadium loves these players, so it's not like the stands are full of naysayers sipping on that haterade. If you have soaked your shirt in sweat for the badge it carries, you are generally loved. A funny incident, by the way, during the ceremony when those former players had their videos shown, one of them in the mix was also Ander Herrera, and the crowd just sort of laughed. It was a very natural reaction, not anything particularly antagonistic or malicious. It just felt a bit misplaced in the middle of all these club legends. Of course, Herrera was a starter in our one and only Champions League final, and he too gave us what he had to give, but it wasn't necessarily on a level with many of those others. I mean, probably more so than with Beckham, of course, but that was a different arrangement to begin with. But let me get back to this Messi situation briefly. I promise, briefly, there is no love lost between him and us and his fans, and in a perfect world, we all hope for something better, but now that we have come to this point, it's also quite relaxing feeling, and undoubtedly for Messi himself too, he gets to do something better and to be a center of attention in football tactics somewhere, and in Paris, he never was that guy, and perhaps that was the issue because both Barcelona did and Argentina do play for him, around him and to support him. But in Paris, we had other players too who are central to the project, and one of them happens to be a French young man who might just be the most exciting football player on the planet. Certainly to me, he is that guy, and captain and the star of the French national team also. So a lot of adjustment was asked from Messi, and things didn't work out. It happens. This season, his numbers are decent, very good even, but his heart hasn't been in it. Or that's my reading of the situation, as he has been losing possession left, right and center, not looking overly bothered by it at all. And if you buy a racing car that should be able to go up to 300 kilometers an hour, but then it will only get to 200, it's still fast, but it's not what you think it was. It's not as advertised. Or rather, if you buy a €1,000 bottle of wine, let's say, you want it to taste better than a €10 bottle of wine, and even if it was as good as, say, a €100 bottle of wine, but all the guys who pick the grapes shout in your ear that this is as good as a €10,000 bottle of wine, then there's a chance that the enjoyment of it all is somewhat compromised and expectations aren't met. That is the last analogy and analysis of his time in Paris, unless I'm somehow forced to address it later if there's some new stories and narratives that come. But I'm really more than ready to put this thing into its final resting place and start looking at the future. My promise to you, like I said, is that I won't start talking about his future because number one, I don't really care about it very much. I don't find it in any way interesting. But most of all, it has got nothing to do with PSG. The rumors have been absolutely wild, absolutely insane actually around our beloved club, and some rumors have been corroborated by some generally trustworthy journalists like Fabrizio Romano and the likes. I very generously set aside the fact that he did report a little over a year ago that Mbappe to Madrid was a done deal, but on the whole he's probably the one to listen to, certainly one of the more trustworthy ones. According to him and others, after Milan Skriniar, who of course is already confirmed earlier, our first signing of the summer is Marco Asensio as a free agent from Real Madrid. Their once wonder kid who fell on difficult times after an injury, and Madrid of course isn't an easy team to get a major minute unless you really are on top of your game. I don't know how I feel about this. It could go either way. Our Spanish signings have not always worked out so well, but perhaps a new start is what he needs, and he could find his level once again. Also, it seems that we're about to sign defensive midfielder Manuel Ugarte from Uruguay and Sporting from Portuguese league. He comes with a great promise, and I genuinely look forward to seeing how it will go if he comes, because a solid defensive midfielders aren't exactly easy to come by. Ugarte is said to be making his move in exchange of 60 million euros, but reportedly this fee is paid in 5 installments and starting from next summer only, so it's not like the whole amount will be deducted now once and for all. These are the names that have been said to be done deals. I don't know, of course, we are waiting for the announcement, but the window isn't even officially open. As I record, it will start on Saturday, 10th of June and end on Friday, 1st of September, a little under 3 months later. It also seems that talks have been opened with Marcus Thuram, who is also a free agent, and there are also several other names, a little lower level of certainty. I won't go into that now because the rumors are mad and getting emotionally attached to them is a dangerous affair, as we have learned once again with what's being reported about our next manager. After it having been apparently dead certain that Jose Mourinho is the name of our next manager, it seems that that lead had entirely cooled down and frozen over. Then it was going to be Luis Enrique, but right now it's being talked about that instead of one big name, we could get 2. I don't know how true this is, but former Hoffenheim, Leipzig and Bayern manager Julian Nagelsmann is said to be the frontrunner, but not just him alone, he would want certain Thierry Henry as his wingman. Now, on paper, that sounds really great. I always had the feeling that Nagelsmann by himself would be crushed in between the player power and the forces of Doha, but with the status of Thierry Henry, this could be avoided. Now, does Henry love PSG? No, he doesn't love PSG. Does he respect it? I would not vouch for that either, so who knows how that would work. I mean, he was the assistant coach for the Belgian national team, and I'm not sure if he felt any particularly much stronger feelings for them either as such, but what he is, of course, is a football perfectionist, and as a coach, his CV might be quite checkered, but there's something about this combination that fascinates me. Nagelsmann's gig at Bayern ended a bit abruptly, but let it be said that in 2017 he won the German Footballers Union's Coach of the Year and German Football Manager of the Year, which is selected by journalists, and 2019-2020 season, which is the one we knocked Leipzig out of the Champions League, he was third in UEFA's Men's Coach of the Year category. Not sure, it's just a rumor for now, so to follow my own advice, let's not get attached to it yet. But good coach is difficult to find, and Paris isn't exactly an easy gig for them, as we have seen. So best foot forward, I wish good decisions by the powers that be. Of course, this is going to be a big summer of departures already by default, as both Messi and Ramos have already played their last matches for us, and then we still have players on loan. Mauro Icardi might be staying in Istanbul or go to AS Roma, that has also been reported, and with a little bit of luck, Gini Wijnaldum will get his spot there too. Paredes, Draxler, Kurzawa and Colin Dagba heading back from their loan deals, and for all parties involved, we hope that they find new homes for them that are more suitable than perhaps Paris is. Some talk about Paredes possibly moving to Inter Miami, but we don't really know much about that yet. Neymar remains a huge question mark. Personally, I'm pretty okay either way if he stays or if he goes. I have to trust the process on that one, and I don't have strong negative feelings about him at all. In my mind, the positive is more dominant despite all the difficulties, and there's been many difficulties during our times together, but with him, the injuries are the issue. I mean, I'm hardly telling you anything that you already don't know. We will follow what the word on the streets is on all these accounts as things progress, but right now it's simply too early to say much more. Neymar's statistics this season, by the way, largely very, very impressive. Actually, all but one of them were pretty insane. 13 goals in Ligue 1 for him, and that means roughly a goal every 119 minutes played. Only Mbappe and Lacazette scored more often while on the pitch. Neymar was also the top 14 scorer of the season, and pretty unbelievably top 2 assist provider after Messi, and all this happened while his combined minutes of the season out of 38 match days equal to just over 17 matches. So basically everything else is impressive except his availability, but of course that is a massive problem, that is quite a huge problem, and it has been for many, many years. We know this, and the latest operation to his foot is said to have made it less fragile, but difficult to have any guarantees. So with the right offer, he could go, and that would potentially give Campos more leeway to rejuvenate the team even further. But if he stays, who knows? Not all is lost either. This divides opinions a lot, but I don't feel too strongly one way or another. Lastly, I will have to mention that there were some reports that perhaps the Xavi Simons lead isn't as dead in the water as I had feared. I don't know, and I certainly don't want to get my hopes up too much, but perhaps we don't give up on that chance quite yet. Come what may. That is pretty much it. That's all for this episode of PSG Review, and thanks for having spent this moment with me. It never escapes me how special that is that you have selected to listen to this show in specific, and feel free to talk to me online at PSG Helsinki on Twitter and Instagram, or email me directly psghelsinki@gmail.com. Rate and review, tell a friend, subscribe and share. All of that is appreciated. My name is Mikko. We stay on the lookout for the shape of things to come. All the best. Take care. Peace.